I had been feeling a bit under the weather and decided to take a quick trip to the local Walmart to pick up some medicine and groceries. It was a regular Sunday afternoon, and the store was full of families, students from James Madison University, and locals doing their weekly shopping. As I pushed my cart through the aisles, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I glanced around but didn't see anything out of the ordinary, just a busy store full of people. I shrugged it off, chalking it up to my mild fever and fatigue. I headed to the pharmacy section to grab some cold medicine. As I reached for a bottle of NyQuil, I noticed a man standing a few feet away staring at me. He was tall, with a scruffy beard and wearing a faded baseball cap. Our eyes met, and he quickly looked away, pretending to browse the vitamins. It really creeped me out, but I brushed it off as paranoia. I continued shopping, picking up some bread, milk, and a few other essentials. Every time I turned a corner, there he was, lurking a few steps behind. I tried to lose him by zigzagging through the aisles, but he always seemed to reappear. At this point, I was starting to freak out a bit. By the time I reached the checkout line, I was on high alert. I discreetly glanced over my shoulder and saw him standing near the electronics section, pretending to look at a display of headphones. I quickly paid for my items and headed for the exit, hoping to lose him in the parking lot. As I walked to my car, I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking. I could feel his presence behind me, getting closer with each step. I finally reached my car, unlocked the door, and threw my groceries in as fast as I could. I looked around quickly, and then I saw him standing about 10 feet away, staring intently.
"Hey, can I talk to you for a second?"
He called out, taking a step closer. I didn't respond. Instead, I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and started the engine. I was in full panic mode. I quickly backed out of the parking space and sped towards the exit. As I drove away, I glanced in my rearview mirror and saw him standing there, watching me leave. The fear didn't subside, even as I put more distance between us. I drove straight to a nearby Starbucks and parked in a well-lit area, trying to calm myself down. I called my best friend Sarah and told her what had happened. "That's terrifying," she said. "You need to report this to the police." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I know, I will, I just need to calm down first." I sat in my car for a while, taking slow, deep breaths. The fear slowly gave way to anger. How dare he make me feel so unsafe in a place I went to regularly? I decided to drive to the Harrisonburg Police Department and file a report. At the station, the officers were sympathetic and took my statement seriously. They assured me they would review the security footage from Walmart. Despite their reassurances, I still felt a lingering fear. A week later, I received a call from the police. They had identified the man from the Walmart security footage. He was a local homeless man with a history of harassment. They had picked him up for questioning and said that he had no real intentions of harming me, just a weird fascination. I found that both odd and concerning. The news brought some relief, but the experience had left a lasting impact. I made a conscious effort to be more aware of my surroundings and to trust my instincts. If something felt off, it probably was. And while the incident at Walmart was behind me, the lesson it taught me would stay with me forever. A few years ago, I took my 5-year-old son, Ethan, to Walmart on a rainy Saturday afternoon. We live in Nashville, Tennessee, and the local Walmart is our usual spot for groceries and household items. I needed to stock up on some essentials, and Ethan, as usual, was excited to come along, mostly because he loved looking at the toy section. We walked through the automatic sliding doors, and Ethan immediately asked if he could go see the toys. I told him no and to stay close, but he pleaded with those big blue eyes. I figured it wouldn't hurt to let him wander a bit as long as he stayed within the aisle I was in. The store wasn't too crowded, and I kept glancing over to check on him. I was browsing the cereal aisle when I noticed Ethan wasn't where I'd last seen him. My heart skipped a beat, and I called out his name. No answer. I quickly moved down the aisle, pushing my cart with one hand and scanning the area. Panic started to set in as I turned the corner and still couldn't see him. I finally spotted him near the end of the toy section, talking to a man I didn't recognize. The man was tall, maybe in his late 40s, and wearing a Walmart uniform. But something was off. The uniform looked different. It was kind of old, a bit faded, and didn't quite match the ones I'd seen all the other employees wearing. I hurried over to them as fast as I could. "Ethan, there you are." I tried to sound calm. "Who is this?" The man looked at me with a slight smile. "Oh, I'm just helping him find a toy," he said. "I'm a store employee." I glanced at his name tag. It read, Steve. But the name tag looked different too, like an old style or something. I knew something was wrong. "I don't think you work here," I said firmly, pulling Ethan close to me. "Of course I do," he insisted, his smile fading. "I'm going to find a real employee," I said, and with that, I walked away quickly, Ethan in tow. As soon as we were out of sight, I found a store associate and explained what had happened. They immediately called security. Minutes later, I saw 2 security guards heading towards the toy section. I followed, and when we got there, the man was gone. The guards started searching the area, and I felt a mixture of fear and frustration. Had I overreacted? Was it all a misunderstanding? Just then, I heard one of the guards on his walkie-talkie. "We've got him near the front entrance." I hurried with Ethan to the front of the store. There, near the exit, was the man, now struggling with the security guards. And there was another child, a little girl, crying and trying to pull away from him. The man had been trying to leave with her. The police were called, and the man was taken away. The uniform, the name tag, all of it was fake. He somehow had an old uniform and used it to look legit. I hugged Ethan tightly, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't believe how close I had come to losing him. The store manager and the police praised me for being observant and acting quickly. But all I could think about was how differently the day could have ended. That night, as I tucked Ethan into bed, I couldn't stop thinking about the what-ifs. From that day on, I never let Ethan out of my sight in public places. The world felt a lot less safe, and I learned that sometimes the monsters are real, hiding in plain sight. I worked at this Walmart in Indiana for about 3 years. It wasn't the most exciting job, but it paid the bills and kept me busy. I worked in the electronics department, helping customers find the latest gadgets and setting up displays. One day, a new worker named Jessica introduced herself to me. She was friendly, with a big smile, and seemed genuinely nice. "Hi, I'm Jessica," she said, holding out her hand. "Hey, I'm Mark," I replied, shaking her hand briefly. I didn't think much of it at the time, just another coworker being polite. Over the next few weeks, Jessica tried to make small talk with me whenever she could. She was nice, but I always was so focused on work that I didn't pay much attention to it. One day, she asked me out for coffee. "Hey Mark," she said, catching me as I was stocking shelves. "Do you want to grab a coffee sometime? There's a nice little place down the street." I was caught off guard but didn't want to be rude. Sure, I guess," I said, scratching the back of my head. "When?" "How about after work today?" she suggested, her eyes lighting up. Okay, see you then," I replied with a small smile. We met up at a local coffee shop after our shift. The place was cozy, with warm lighting and the rich smell of freshly brewed coffee. We chatted for a while, but I could tell that this wasn't what I wanted. She was nice, but we weren't really compatible like that. I decided to end it early. "I'm sorry, Jessica, but I have to leave," I said, standing up abruptly. "I'll see you tomorrow at work." Over the next few days, I noticed Jessica was trying to get closer to me. Whenever I tried to avoid her, she seemed to find a way to talk to me. It was getting frustrating, so I decided to be upfront with her the next day at work. "Jessica, coffee the other day was cool and all, but I'm not interested in anything more than a friendship." She seemed to take it well. "Oh, okay, I understand," she said, trying to sound casual, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. That's when things started to get weird. One night, after work, I found a deep scratch along the side of my car. I was furious. "Who the hell did this to my car?" I shouted to myself in the parking lot. As the weeks went on, I started to notice Jessica watching me from a distance. She kept leaving notes in my locker. Every time I would throw them away without even looking at them. One day, I had had enough. "Jessica, this has to stop," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "If you don't leave me alone, I'm going to report you to HR." She looked scared, but I hoped that would be the end of it. That night, I found my tires slashed. I was at my breaking point. I couldn't take this anymore. The next day, I went into work and talked to my manager and HR about what was happening, and they reviewed the security footage. They had clear evidence of Jessica scratching my car and slashing my tires. She was fired on the spot and told to leave the premises immediately. As she walked out of the store, I felt a mix of relief and pity. How had things gotten so out of control? I decided not to call the police and press charges. All I wanted was to do my job and live my life in peace, but instead I had been dragged into this nightmare. I realized then that Jessica needed help, but it was out of my hands. My only concern was moving on and putting this whole ordeal behind me.